Tonight, NBC senior correspondent Tom Brokaw says he's angry, hurt, and unmoored by what he calls a torrent of unsubstantiated criticism leveled against him by former NBC News correspondent Linda Vester, allegations he denies.
I felt like this man could destroy my career. So if he said he's coming over, I have to let him come over.
In interviews published last night, Vester says Brokaw showed up uninvited at her New York hotel room in 1994, at first putting his finger on her lips, then grabbing her.
He took the same hand, reached behind my head, and tried to force me to kiss him.
Vester says Brokaw tried to kiss her again before leaving.
I stood there for a couple of minutes and just shook out of sheer panic.
Brokaw today writing, "I should not have gone, but I emphatically did not verbally and physically attack her," adding, "She often reminded me she was a Catholic and that she was uncomfortable with my presence, so I left 23 years later to be stunned by her melodramatic description of the meeting." Vester says she kept a diary and told a friend, an NBC producer at the time, about the incident. She wouldn't verify either to NBC News. Vester told Variety a year later Brokaw invited himself to her apartment in London and again tried to force her to kiss him. That move she so vividly describes is not who I am, Brokaw writes in his letter to colleagues. "I am not a perfect person, but as I write this at dawn on the morning after a drive-by shooting by Vester, The Washington Post, and Variety, I am stunned by the free ride given a woman with a grudge against NBC News." He dismisses Vester as a former colleague who left NBC News angry that she had failed in her pursuit of stardom. Late today, NBC News chairman Andy Lack sent a memo to NBC News employees about the allegations against Brokaw, writing, "As we've shown, we take allegations such as these very seriously and act on them quickly and decisively when the facts dictate." The network today also facing criticism from former Today co-host Ann Curry. Curry tells The Washington Post she tried to warn two members of NBC management in 2012 that, quote, they had a problem with her former co-host Matt Lauer and they needed to keep an eye on him. Last fall, the network terminated Lauer after a complaint. In a new statement, Lauer acknowledged he acted inappropriately but denied allegations of coercive, aggressive, or abusive actions.
Savannah, in his memo, the chairman of MSNBC and NBC News said a review that NBC Universal has been conducting ever since Lauer was terminated is almost to its conclusion, and there will be findings and further steps as soon as next week, he said. Critics say that review, Savannah, should have been done by outside counsel, a lawyer outside of this company.
Kate, thank you very much.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here. And click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.